You're listening to the Home Staging Show podcast, this season 3, episode 2. This is your host, Cindy Lin. Hey guys, welcome back. I hope you had enjoyed our first episode of this season with Lisa from HGTV's Critical Listing. That was a really great episode and I love all the tips and tricks that she has shared. If this is your first time listening to the show, I'm Cindy Lin. I'm the founder and owner of Chief of Everything Officer at Stage for More Home Staging here in San Francisco Bay Area. I've been a home stager for about 10 years, and you're listening to the Home Staging Show where we talk about all things real estate, home staging, and styling your home. And as usual, if you enjoy the show, please take a moment to rate and write us a review on iTunes. It will help others to find the show and we can book more amazing guests for the show. The rest of this month, I want to focus on mindset. You're probably thinking that is so incredibly vague and kind of woo-woo. Why are we talking about this on a home staging show? Well, today's episode kicks off a 3-part series where we talk about removing clutter in your life and your home. And this includes both emotional and physical clutter. The series will also go over setting goals, intention, and being mindful about your process, then attaching actions to get things done. I know sometimes this type of conversation may sound really woo-woo, especially I live in California. It makes me sound like a total hippie. But I think it's really important to have it because a large part of selling your home is a mental game. It's not just the physical aspect of things. Selling your house is like running a marathon. You will hit your wall several times throughout the process and you will want to give up completely. But I don't want you to, and that's why I've invited guests on the show to talk about these things, like mindset, intention, and manifesting, so that you're mentally clear and prepare yourself for the sale ahead. The other thing is that one of the main goals for the show is to empower you to make positive changes for yourself and beautify your environment so you live a more inspired and happier life. I feel very strongly about it, and having gone through a lot of personal losses last year, I can't tell you how shifting my mindset and physically removing a lot of materials and breaking off bad relationships in my life have done for both my business and personal life. I am sorry to say that it's taken death and losses to put things into perspective for me. I'm still working through a lot of it, and but just being able to shed the stuff was a very large part of my healing process, which was also mentioned briefly on the show today. Anyway, this show is not about me, it's about you. Today, I'm interviewing Laura Gaskill, who is an interior writer, e-course teacher, mother, and creative soul living in her hometown, Alameda, which is an island in San Francisco Bay Area, after living on the East Coast for 7 years. Her mission is to help people unearth their treasures and live a more authentic, beautiful, and meaningful life. She's a regular contributor on House.com, and she teaches people how to mindfully clear clutter. And this is why I think it's such an important process and conversation to have on the show today. Decluttering is such a big part of the home staging process, and I really hope that our conversation will help motivate you to start removing clutter in your life and inspire you to become to have a better environment and for better and bigger things. And that's why I thought it would be perfect to have Laura on to discuss her own personal experience staging her house for sale and what she's learned through her professional experiences and through her home staging experiences. I also thought the series would be a really great starting point for next month's special project, which is something I'm calling Operation Home. As you may know, real estate usually starts heating up in March. So we're moving up the spring cleaning plans up a month in February. So for those of you who are putting the home on the market in the spring, we'll be ready for it. So you'll be hearing mostly me next month on the podcast. I hope you're not going to be sick of me. I also have blog posts and cheat sheets available for you to go along with the project. I also have a really quick announcement to make about Stage Your House Like a Pro course. As you know, we launched it last September and we've been beta testing the new platform. I have actually just decided to turn that into a live course this summer for the fall selling season, which means that it will not be available in our shop until when we reopen up the course again. Because I think from the feedback, it really seems like people prefer having that interactions and support with each other while everybody's going through the process together or roughly the same time. In addition to having me in the group for your support. And there are also a few things I'm no longer happy with, just as we're developing more content on stagemore.com. I just feel like the course can... I don't know, I just want to add more content to it so it's more robust. I also want to bring on guest teachers, which I think is pretty exciting. So anyway, if you're interested in the course and you want to sign up for the waiting list for the summer session, just go to stagemore.com and click on School on the menu bar. So without further ado, let's start the show today. Great background, and can you tell us a little bit about yourself and how did you get started?
Sure. I guess it really got started in 2009 when I moved from here where I am now, Alameda, California, to Providence, Rhode Island, with my husband to be closer to his family. Before that, I was a teacher, which I loved, but after a few years, I was already starting to feel not burned out, but like I couldn't keep up the passion and take good care of myself and get to the other things I really wanted to do. I really wanted to pursue a more creative career, but my energy was so sapped at the end of the day, I could never find time to take any classes or make a change. So I decided to use that big move to make a change in my life. And in Providence, I signed up for the interior design certificate program at RISD. The design school.
That's amazing.
I know. It was like this great resource that was suddenly like literally right around the corner from where we lived. So I loved the program. It was, an amazing experience. And soon after starting to take classes, I also started my first blog. And also around that time, the website House was just getting started. And one of the editors became a fan of my blog and contacted me. And I started writing just one small piece per month for them. And it sort of snowballed from there. I realized that I really loved writing about design more than, like, I didn't really want to be an interior designer, but I loved being involved with designers and architects and homeowners in a different way. And kind of just went from there.
That's very cool. So for those listeners who are not familiar with House, can you talk a little bit about it? And how do you use House? Because I look at your profile, it's amazing. Oh my God, I didn't know you can do all that in House.
Thanks. So yeah, for those who aren't familiar with House, it's an online platform for home remodeling and design that brings together homeowners and home professionals. There's something like 8 million design photos on House right now. It's always growing, that are searchable by room, by style, lots of other things. So, and there's also a huge database now of professionals' portfolios, from contractors to interior designers, architects, stagers. So if you're looking for, if you're trying to remodel your home or hire someone, you can find a professional there, or find inspiration in the photos. There's also a massive online shop where you can purchase just about anything for the home. And then there are the articles, and that's what I do. We have articles on everything from decorating to remodeling, selling your home, architecture, life at home. And so I've been a contributing writer there since 2009.
That's amazing. Yeah, I had no idea. It's grown so much, I think.
It really has.
Yeah.
They have international offices now. It's like being, everything's being translated into, all these
Wow.
different languages, and yeah, it's really grown.
Yeah, I just chatted with this photographer in Netherlands, and that's actually how she started. She started taking pictures for a house in Europe because they had no presence there yet, and so they really need content. So
Yeah,
that was how she got started.
cool.
That's
Yeah.
insane. Wow. I had no idea house is this amazing because I'm looking at your profile and I was like, wow, like you have so many idea books. This is really fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
That's awesome. And how do you come up with the content that you write? Or does House give you a guideline that what they want you to write, or you just write whatever you want?
I pretty much, I mean, I come up with my own ideas for the most part. I mean, sometimes my editor will come to me with, some, kind of a theme that they're working with for the season or something like that. But usually I come up with my own ideas and then I get them approved. And, if no one else is working on something similar, then I go for it. I get a lot of ideas from just my own life and what I want, what I'm interested in, or what I want to know more about, or what someone, people in my life are also working with at help.
That's very cool. And what are some of the biggest lessons that you learned writing for House?
Let's see, so many things. It's been wonderful because, like I said, as a freelance writer, I've been able to choose most of my own topics. So I've often used my articles as a way to learn more about things that really interest me or that are
Hmm.
challenging me.
Same
So,
way here. I'm the same thing.
yeah, yeah,
Especially with the podcast, I basically interview people with
yeah,
to like about things I don't know a lot about. So yeah.
yeah, exactly. And that's great. So, like, for example, earlier in 2015, my husband and I sold our home in Providence in order to move back to California. So, in preparation for that, I did a whole bunch of pieces on decluttering,
Mm,
staging, and selling your house.
that's awesome. That's
Yeah, so
great.
to speak with real estate agents, stagers, organizers, and it was really enlightening. Um, for one thing, every single person I talked to named decluttering as the most important thing to do to help a home sell faster
Yeah.
and for more money.
Hmm.
um, it's also been really interesting speaking with homeowners and designers who live in such different spaces, like from really grand spaces to literally tiny homes, like the
Yeah.
200, square foot little cabins, but each has found their own way. And, I think it's easy to look at all of the visual inspiration out there and become really overwhelmed.
Yeah. Hmm.
But, having a space that you love that just feels really good and feels like you um, seems to come down to figuring out what you love and what's important to you, not necessarily like spending more money or buying more stuff.
That's awesome. So it sounds like you staged the house yourself when you sold it.
I did.
That's awesome. How was the whole process for you?
It was definitely, it was a learning curve. I had fun with it. It was also very stressful.
Mm.
I kind of roped in my real estate agent into helping me a little. She also had been in the same interior design certificate program as me at RISD.
Oh, very cool.
And she is very, has a great design sense and has worked with, obviously selling lots of houses. So she gave me some tips and then I kind of ran with it from there. But yeah, the decluttering part was definitely, I feel like that was so much of it. Because once like all of this and I didn't even feel like I had a cluttered home. Like I've always been kind of like, I tend to give away things a lot, regularly. So I'm not, hoarding lots of stuff in the closets. But still, there was so much, that needed to be gotten rid of in order for it to feel really spacious. And once that was done, it was tweaking smaller things. Like I got a fresh white slip cover for my couch and some new throw pillows and, a few little things here and there. Um, yeah, but it was very interesting.
Yeah, and what was the most challenging part for you?
Oh, I mean, honestly, probably just the time timetable.
Yeah.
Like
Okay.
it was like, it seemed like we had so much time. And then all of a sudden it was like, oh no, like the photographer is coming to take the real estate photos,
Oh
on
no.
Wednesday. And I'm like, I was waiting for like the slipcover to come back from this woman who was finishing sewing it for me. And I had to, clean all the floors with this special like shine product. And I totally like slipped and fell on my back. And
Oh my gosh.
it's just like, God, it was ridiculous, at the end. So I feel like that was really, yeah, in retrospect, if we had planned it, from even farther in advance so that it was a little more, not such a rush right at the last second, that would have been good.
What was your time frame, and what did you wish that you have?
Um, I guess, if I had done all the decluttering even like a year in advance, that would be good. And then just have a little minor stuff to take care of beforehand. We started really getting on it like in, I want to say March, and we listed the home in May.
Wow. Yeah.
And yeah, yeah,
It's a
looking back,
lot.
I don't know what we were thinking. We got a new roof also in that time.
Yeah.
Um, but also I have a son who's 5.5 now. So he would be like coming home from, soccer with like mud all over him. And I'm like, stop, like take off your clothes. Don't touch anything. So that was stressful too, because I didn't like having to, worry about that.
That is crazy. Yeah, like you just never know until you go through that process yourself. There's definitely a lot. Like I think throughout our lifetime we accumulate so much stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I actually really love the name of your e-course, Mindful Clutter Clearing. And I think that's really important because I hate to talk about decluttering because I feel like it has such a negative connotation. And every time I brought it up in the preparation process, client always makes this face. I feel like they hate it before they even start doing it, even though it's so good for them.
Right.
So so I
Totally.
really love that the way you put it, it's about being mindful and it's like clearing. And so tell us a little bit about your inspiration and your concept about the whole
Yeah.
course.
Thanks. Yes, I agree with you. Getting rid of clutter is really difficult. And I felt the word mindful kind of brings you back to the present and to what's important to you in your life right now. I think it's so much more helpful and positive to focus on like clarifying what you want your space to look and feel like, and then letting go everything that does not match up with that instead of focusing on like all the things you're having to give up, because then it feels really negative. So
Oh,
focusing like on making room in your life for the things and the activities that you really love. It just kind of helps. Yeah, I think it helps thinking about it in a different way.
yeah, no, I love the way you put that because I remember working with sellers where they're just really attached to the stuff that they have, but because they have to downsize, it was a bigger house than they could financially afford. But
Mm-hmm.
literally, the real estate agent eventually just like I remember we had this particular client and she just would not get started. And so the real
Yeah.
estate agent actually, in a way, forces her hand. Like she just brought a
Right.
bunch of boxes to the house and start packing for her.
Yeah.
And the client literally will unpack
Oh
like
my
right behind
gosh.
her. So like she would pack a box and the
Oh
client will be like going
no.
through a whole box, be like, wait, I need this, I need that. And it was like a really difficult process. So I
Hmm.
definitely can see how sellers or even us in general like can really
Right.
have that emotional attachment to our stuff. So how
Definitely.
can we learn to let that go when we going through the mindful clutter clearing process?
Yeah. Well, let's see. Um, for one thing, I think that, yeah, I mean, the emotional attachment is what makes it so hard. So recognizing that. And then I feel like one of the most helpful concepts to embrace is to try to let one item stand for many. So the less you have of something, the more special it becomes.
Hmm.
It's like, don't keep every single piece of art your child made in kindergarten. Keep just one or two and let them stand for all of the other work. It's like focusing on making things more special. Um, if you have like a huge amount of, photos from one event, it's just a mess. But if you have like one or two pictures that really capture it and that are really beautiful, you're going to find that, more inspiring and more, heartwarming to look at when you pull out your photo album than this giant mess of, hundreds of pictures of the same thing.
Right. So it's more curated, right?
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
exactly. And of course, I think sharing your experience with someone can also really help, which is where, the seed of an idea for my e-course came from, because we can talk about these things and say, this is really hard for me and here's why. And, have other people be supportive and say, yeah, I'm going through the same thing too. And these are the feelings that are coming up. And just hearing that other people have those same kind of feelings about their things and it is hard. I think just that alone can also help.
That's very cool. Yeah, because I definitely think the process declutter, like things definitely come up, right? I think one of the
Mm-hmm.
hardest part about, for example, losing someone is to go through their stuff after they have
Yes.
passed. Because
Yeah.
there's so much like emotional attachment, like the
Mm-hmm.
clothes, I mean the stuff that they
Oh,
use. You
yes.
just basically want to keep everything. But like the thing is like they have gone they have moved on, right? And
Right.
you need to move on too, so you have to go
Yeah.
through these process of getting rid of, not getting rid of, but like basically giving
Yeah.
those things away for
Right.
donation, like so
Yeah.
they still have a purpose.
Mm-hmm.
It's definitely like, yeah, it's like definitely an emotional process, but it's also a
Yeah.
healing process. I think a lot of times people don't realize
Yes.
when we're start shedding all these kind of, the past and then the emotional layers, you are actually in a way starting to heal yourself.
Absolutely. I think that's a really good point. Yeah. I've also found sometimes, like, if there is something where it's really like, someone you love has passed away, you're trying to deal with all these things that they left behind. Documenting it in some other way can also really help process, like taking a photograph of the item, even writing a little story about it,
Mm,
transferring it into another form. So you're like doing something, you feel like you're doing something with the feelings and you're also preserving it, but in a different way. So you don't have to necessarily keep all the things themselves, and you can realize you're still keeping the positive memories without holding on to all the stuff.
that's very cool. Do you scrapbook yourself?
No, I don't.
Okay, because this conversation really reminds me of scrapbooking. There's this really huge product there called Project Life, but basically they
Yeah.
encourage you to like journal and then really select. Like I feel like all this conversation we just had about like
Yeah.
picking the best photograph. It was really like
Right.
about it was really like a lot like the Project Life stuff that I've been
Yeah.
personally
I
looking
have
at for
heard of
memory
that
keeping.
too. Yeah.
Yeah, no,
I
it's
think
pretty
that's really
crazy.
cool.
Yeah, it's a huge industry. I was like, oh my God, I had no idea until I started looking into it about
Yeah.
memory keeping.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, what are some of the benefits for letting clutter go?
So many. I mean, just more, I think for more, to me, more peace and calm at home. It just, when you're in a, room that has clutter free, you just feel calmer. I feel like clutter is kind of like a visual reminder of all the stuff you have to do. And having a clean, clutter free space is just very calming. You also waste a lot of time, waste a lot less time like looking for things you can't find, and you just kind of feel lighter.
So, when you're working with clients, do you encourage them to basically getting into a habit or some sort of routine? Kind of maybe not even daily, maybe
Yeah,
weekly, to just keep going through it?
absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I think that, if your home is really cluttered, definitely helps to get, a good start and do a bigger clutter clearing. But just clearing the clutter once, like if you don't have the habits to maintain that, it's just going to get cluttered again. Like you have, like I always keep like just like a reusable, like grocery bag in my closet. Actually, I have a couple in different places. And whenever I come across something like a book, say I bought it, I read it, it wasn't that great.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to keep it forever. I put it in the bag. And when the bag is full, or like a piece of clothing you put on and you realize you're not going to wear it anymore, and just, have a place where you're regularly putting things that you are going to give away, because you can't, if you buying things are coming into your house. If things aren't going out, eventually the balance is going to get, out of whack again.
Okay. And I just realized we never define what clutter is. Do you want to take some time to define what clutter is? Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's interesting. I would say it is anything in your home that is, not useful to you and that you do not love. It's like that, what was that? William Morris quote about, don't have anything in your home that is not beautiful or useful, or beautiful and useful, or something.
Uh-huh.
It's like something that, because I think it's okay to have like a beautiful object that you love just because it's beautiful, you know. But if you something you don't really like, or it's not useful to you, it's clutter. It's just taking up space.
But what if somebody comes in and say, "But I like everything. I don't want to get rid of anything."
Oh, yeah, that is tough. But then you also have to think about, like, is it in the way of living your life? Like, if your home is only so big and you have just, too much stuff, it's where it's making it difficult to find what you need to wear in the morning, or to, cook your meals or whatever, then it's just too much, And I think that we also just have to be realistic about the space that we live in. And sometimes you have to make hard decisions. But, I think that when people look a little bit more closely at their belongings, like, you can make those calls. Yeah, it's not easy, but I think it's worth it to have, just enough stuff in your space so that it feels, easy to do what you need to do.
That's pretty cool. And I'm assuming everyone has a different kind of guideline in terms of how they determine what is just enough for them, correct?
Right. Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think some people are just naturally more minimalist,
Mm-hmm.
and some people feel, happier with kind of a happy jumble of things around them. I'm thinking of some like artists I know where it's just they feel like it's really inspiring to have, piles of fabrics and, lots of jewelry displayed everywhere, and lots of layered textiles, and just, lots of stuff, lots of books, and that's fun. I feel like that's a style, difference, and that's, yeah, just people are different. You have to kind of get to know where is your comfort level, what makes you happy in your home.
That's very cool. And then, so how, like, have you seen some major changes for your clients after they started the whole mindful clearing process?
Yeah, well, just that it's really helpful in clearing, not just clearing the clutter in their homes, but I feel like it kind of has a ripple effect. Like, you start to clear the clutter in your home, and basically what you're doing when you're doing that mindfully is being really intentional about choosing what is in your house. And
Mm-hmm.
then you start to think about, like, well, if I'm choosing what is in my house, also choosing what is in my life, and thinking about, like, you know, even what career you have, or if you're really happy with, relationships in your life, and it can really have a ripple effect. So I think that can be really amazing to see.
That's pretty juicy, actually. So you're saying that it's not just the physical stuff, it's like the emotional clutter as well. So maybe
Yeah,
there's relationship in your life that no longer serves you, like someone's being a bad friend, and you can
totally.
kind of sit down and reevaluate those type of relationships.
Yes, yeah, definitely.
Wow. I wonder if someone is just like, I just realized my job doesn't serve me anymore, and then after the whole process they're like, I quit. No.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, hopefully they will have something lined up before they just go in and do that. But yeah, totally. I
That's
think
pretty
that'd be kind of
funny.
cool.
Yeah, I think that's very interesting. Um yeah, it's kind of crazy. I think when you're determining to, I don't know, I feel like I personally went through a few different people in my life passing last year, and so after that, I was like purging a lot of things in my life.
Yeah.
And I was definitely going through that decluttering process, like physically and also emotionally. And I do feel like my life has shifted since then. So it's
Yeah.
also like even changed my business. Like I think
Good.
the whole mindset was actually changed. I just started kind of reevaluating what is serving in my life and what's no longer serving my life.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, that's insane. So when you're working with clients on their decluttering process, do you like how do you? I mean, because to declutter an entire house is very overwhelming. So
Yeah.
how do you help them break that down?
Yeah. Well, okay. So for one thing, I, have you read the Marie Kondo's book that's been everywhere, The Life-Changing Magic of Tidying Up?
I have glanced through it, but I
Yeah.
actually haven't started doing any of it.
Well, one thing that I do really like that she's done in her book that I kind of use is decluttering by category.
Hmm.
I feel like that's a really helpful way to kind of focus your decluttering and make it more manageable. So, for instance, well, for one thing, I think that can be really overwhelming with decluttering is say you start decluttering, some areas. You have just stuff everywhere, like in piles all over your house. And if you don't have a plan for how you're going to actually get rid of the things that you're clearing before you begin, it just ends up being a total disaster. You just have this huge mess and you have all these things you're keeping, all these things that you want to get rid of, but you don't know what to do with them. So I say don't wait until the end. Make a plan beforehand, like where you're going to take the things that you're clearing out and do it by category. So say you're going to do all of your clothes. Well, that makes it easier because, say you find it's all the same category of items. So you can find, say, a vintage clothing store where you're going to sell your old clothes that are in good condition and take the rest to, Goodwill or something. Or for, and then if you're doing kids' toy, your kids' room or whatever, you might find like a used kids' toy store where you can take things to sell or, something like that. So breaking it down by category, I find is very helpful. And just getting yourself into a positive frame of mind before you start any clutter clearing sessions. Like make yourself some tea, light some candles, even write down some keywords that bring to mind the feeling that you really want to create in your home and have them in front of you when you're doing it to help you stay positive and stay focused on what you hope your end result to be.
That's very cool. And then, so do you have, when you're talking about sessions, do you have like a recommended time for each client, or it's just up to what their tolerance is?
I think it's up to what they are able to do. I mean, I think a lot of people just are really, busy. I mean, some people might have a huge chunk of time that they could commit to decluttering. Sometimes I feel like it's great if you can, commit a whole weekend,
Hmm.
like to a major decluttering marathon, if you feel up to it. But a lot of people just can't have that don't have that amount of time. Like people have, kids, they have a career. It's really hard to find big chunks of time. And I think that's okay. Like just look at your schedule. As long as you're doing it regularly, it will happen. You can get through it. So just, even if it's, I'd say at least like an hour, maybe a half an hour chunks here and there. Try and get a couple, 2 hours at a time when you can have a little more time,
I
that
see.
kind of thing.
And then, so when clients come up with resistance, for example, they're just like, oh, I can't. Like, is there any ways to help them to feel motivated to start up the cluttering process? I mean, to clearing process again?
Yeah, a couple things. I think for one thing, well, yeah, there are a few different things. Um, for one thing, focusing back on like doing a little visualization and imagining you have already decluttered. What does your home look like? How does it feel? Or this particular, area that's giving you a problem, and really visualize that you have already done it. And that can kind of help people get over a hump. or leave that alone and just move to a different category that seems easier and work on that first. You don't have to, I feel like as long as you're making progress, you can always come back to what's troubling you later on if you need to. Also, taking photos, I find sometimes helps give you some perspective. Like take a picture of the space that you're trying to declutter and then look at the picture of the space instead of looking at the actual, closet or, cupboard or whatever. And to kind of get some distance between you and your stuff and look at it like it's not yours. And then think, what would I get rid of if this was just somebody else's stuff that I'm looking at.
That's very cool. That's a really cool technique. It's kind of similar because I do teach home staging, teach people how to do it themselves. And one of the things too, I noticed too, I mean, we have come across it too. Like sometimes we're on a job site and we're kind of stuck about how to like style this particular room. I'm always just like, let's just come back to it later because sometimes your mind is just like, and you need to kind of loosen up and get it going again. And so go do something else, forget all about it. In the meanwhile, your brain is in the back, like trying to process it. And then you come back to it and then you're just like, oh, actually, why didn't we think of this way?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. And I like the photograph process as well. I think that's a really neat trick. Because sometimes too, I think, you know how when they say the camera adds 10 pounds, I feel like it's the same way with clutter. Because when you have clutter and you see it on a photograph visually, it's really different.
Yeah. Being in your own house, you kind of, I think you get used to just the way it is. And you just kind of stop noticing things.
That's actually one of the technique too. I think when I started staging, my instructor taught me that sometimes the client just doesn't know what their house looks like, so you actually have to present it to them. So you take a photograph and you put it in your proposal and show them, like, if we don't do anything right now, this is gonna be how it is look on the MLS. And people will be like, wow, okay, I had no idea that paint colors like that. So sometimes people really do need to see it.
Wow, that's cool.
And then, so do you have a system or process that you use with your clients all the time?
Just, in the e-course, we're going through tackling like one space, one, area of the home, and then also one kind of emotional issue. So, because I feel like it's really important to go through both, like to address the emotional side of things and the space. So for instance, we'll start with the wardrobe and we'll do like a clutter wake up call, which is actually taking photos of everywhere in your house and looking at them. And then we'll go through guilt clutter.
Ooh, I love that.
I know. I'm excited to actually have a psychologist who's going to be a special guest in our e-course talking to us about how to release our guilt around, the things in our home. So I'm really looking forward to that too, because I'm hoping to learn some new techniques for that.
That sounds so fascinating. Oh my gosh. I love like geeking out over stuff like that. That's awesome.
So with guilt clutter, then we'll also be looking at like in the home, then like gifts people have given you. I feel like that's something that people feel really guilty about giving away. Gifts that people gave you that you don't like, or even like a family, inheritance or heirloom or something that is just, is more of a weight on you because it's really not your style or whatever. And then like just in case clutter, like I feel like a lot of people have this kind of fear, like I might need it someday. And I feel like that comes from a fear of scarcity. Like you are worried that, in the future, you're not going to have enough of something. So getting more comfortable with, I'm going to trust that I will be okay in the future and I don't need this now. So I'm going to let it go and I will be okay, and kind of getting okay with that. And that during that week, we'll be going through some of our deeper closets, the junk drawer, the kitchen, some places where these kind of things tend to hide. And then we kind of end with nostalgic clutter, which is some of the hardest to go through. So that's artwork, children's artwork, memorabilia, and photos. Wow. And we'll kind of frame it in a way of, you're curating your life story. So trying to, again, always bring it to looking at it in a positive way. Like, how do you want, what story do you want your memorabilia and your photos to tell about your life? So yeah, I think that about covers how we're going to do things in this course, and we'll see how it goes. I'm really excited.
That's very cool. I mean, these are very juicy areas, I feel like. Also very intense areas. I mean, you talk about nostalgia and guilt. I know. All the emotions that women do not deal well with.
Exactly.
So. Yeah, it's pretty heavy in a way.
Yeah, it is actually. I mean, you think like, clutter clearing or whatever, it sounds kind of whatever, superficial, but it's really not. Like it brings up all of these deeper issues in our lives, I think.
Yeah, I definitely think so. And I mean, even just like clearing out your wardrobe, for example, like this is why it's so much easier if you hire someone to come in and tell you like, like Stacey London, she's like, have you seen that show where she and what's her partner's name? Her hosting partner?
I can't remember his name.
Is it Cliff? I forgot. But they go through someone's closet and they throw things in trash can, and then people are like, but my mom gave me that, or like my mom made that, or like I had that since high school or something like that. Like people are like emotional about their clothing as well. I mean, you're essentially wearing your guilt or wearing your insecurity, because a lot of times we buy things that we feel like would hide our problem areas.
Yeah.
So like she's just like brutal. She's like, and that was a 360-degree mirror.
Oh my gosh, I know. Yeah, that's pretty rough. Yeah.
That's pretty cool. I think that's it sounds like a really great course curriculum.
Thank you.
Yeah. How long did it take for you to put it all together?
Oh my gosh. Well, I mean, I came up with the idea years ago and it was kind of percolating. And then after we sold our house, and I had to go through, I literally decluttered every single thing that we owned. Wow. And as I was going through that process, that's kind of when I formulated the plan for the class. And so I don't know, I guess in the last couple of months, I really have been pulling together some experts to come in and help us each week with certain areas. I have a style expert coming in the first week, and I have a cookbook author who's going to talk about setting up your kitchen, and nice. So it should be really fun.
Oh my god, I totally want to sign up now. That's pretty cool. And so in terms of when you're going through your own decluttering, for example, like because you just mentioned you you're mindful cleared your entire house. Yeah. So how, like, when you're looking at each object, do you have questions that you ask yourself when going through them? Is there like a criteria for you, like a checklist? If this item doesn't, say like you have 5 things you're looking for and this item it only has 3, for example, then you're definitely donating it.
I feel like some things are just like very easy. Like that was the first wave of decluttering my house, was just kind of like stuff that I knew I needed to get rid of, and we had just shoved it into a closet, like, so we didn't have to deal with it. Like, my son's broken stroller. I'm like, okay. And like a broken coffee pot or something. I think a lot of us have things like that. So starting with the low hanging fruit, so to speak. With the trickier items, I think of how it makes me feel inside primarily. Like, what emotions does it bring up in me? If it's not something that I use every day and love, because it's kind of like, they're the things that are, really easy to tell, like, oh, I don't need that, I've been meaning to get rid of it. And the things that, oh, I love that and I use it all the time. It's like the gray area when you're trying to decide, do I keep it or not? I really feel like it comes down to how it makes you feel. Like, does it make you feel really positive and good and bring up good memories, or does it make you feel kind of heavy and like, um, or insecure about yourself, or something like that? And then I would say give it away.
That's very cool. Yeah, that's a lot. I mean, that yeah, that could be a very lengthy process.
Yeah.
But I think one of it too is like being brave and then kind of work through your emotions about it too.
Right. Yeah, definitely. I mean, for just one example, I found like this huge box of all of these journals I had from, a time in my life that was not so great, and, relationship that was not great. And I was like, you know what? These do not make me feel good. I did not need to keep these, and I threw them all away. And I wouldn't have thought that I would have been able to do that, but after I did, I was like, oh, that was, I feel so much lighter. There's no reason to keep things, if they are kind of dragging you down or reminding you of, times in your life that were not good.
That's very cool. And then so I think one of the other thing too, I personally get stuck on when I'm decluttering is where
Mhm.
to give all this stuff to. Like
Right.
for example, I've cleared out stuff like, I mean, like jewelry, for example, I had
Yeah.
like in college. I
Hmm.
mean, like where I mean, like I don't think they would take it for donation. So I'm always like, okay, here's a box of jewelry I no longer could use. Like where
Right.
should I like what should I do with these stuff? Like I feel
Right.
bad just throwing them away in landfill, but like
Yeah.
what are some of your suggestions for that?
Yeah, well, I mean, for one thing, like for the class, I am compiling like a giant resource list of
Mm.
types of places where you can take different things. But yeah, I mean, for one thing, calling whatever your local like donation center is, I feel like they do accept, some of them accept a lot of things you might, be surprised about, including jewelry, as long as it's not like broken,
Hmm.
just whatever costume jewelry. A lot of thrift stores will accept that. Um, but there are also random, like as I've been doing some research for the class, there's some random places. Like one thing that I've come upon, like not knowing what to do with in my own life, is like leftovers from crafting
Oh
projects.
yeah.
Like I'll buy something, or I'll even like buy stuff for a craft project and then decide like, oh, I'm not really like much of a knitter, so now I have all this like yarn and needles, and or like half used, fabric scraps. And I found some great resources for like there's a couple in the Bay Area. There's I think it's called like Recrafting
Mm.
Center or something right here in Alameda, that actually organizes and then resells little crafting and sewing and stuff supplies. And there are also some teacher resource centers that give the things for free to any teacher, can come in and pick up like they'll even take random like recycled materials and all kinds of crazy things.
Oh, that's very cool because I
Yeah.
think teachers definitely need stuff like that for sure.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
have you found scrap in San Francisco?
Oh yeah, that's one that I had come across. Yeah, I've never
Yeah.
been there, but yeah, I did find them online.
Yeah, they take a bunch of really, really random stuff. Like
Yeah.
you can find like all sorts of random things in there. For sure. They take a
Yeah.
lot. Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool.
That's very cool. So where can our listeners find you?
Okay, well, my website is my name, lauragaskill.com. And that's also where you can find out about my e-course and register at lauragaskill.com/e-course. And you can find me on House. I usually have 3 or 4 articles featured there every week. And you can find all of my idea books on house.com/user/Lolalina. That's the name of my old blog. I can give you, or you probably have a link for the show notes.
Yeah, I'll link it in the show notes.
Yeah.
And then I just have a couple questions left for you. How can someone clear clutter in their lives mindfully without feeling overwhelmed?
um, I think that always coming back to your vision of what you want your life to look and feel like is probably the most important thing, because that's where you'll find your inspiration. That's what will motivate you. So literally doing a visualization, like taking the time to get quiet and visualize yourself, as specifically as you can with all your senses, paying attention to where you live, like how you want your home to look and feel, what objects are around you, what you're wearing, how you spend your day, everything. And, figuring out what you really want in life first, and not worrying so much about, what you think you should want, what other people want for you, or, what you have to give up, but really focusing on the positive, what you want for yourself.
That's very cool. And so my last question for you is, what's the one best tip you can give to our listeners about clearing clutter?
Just do it. Start now. There is never, like, you might, think like, oh, this such and such a time will be, better for me. I'm too busy. I'll wait till my kids are in school. I'll wait till, I have kids. I'll wait till, I have a different job. Like, no, you need to just start now. You don't have to do it all at once. Just get started and create an intention that I am going to clear the clutter from my home, my life, and you will get there.
That is very cool. I totally agree. As long as you just need to like get off the couch and do it. Because any type of progress is a good progress.
Totally. Yeah, exactly.
Even if you just do it for 5 minutes, it's still 5 minutes more than what you like would have done if you just done nothing. So
totally. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so thank you again for coming on the show. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Cindy. This is really fun.
Yay, I hope you liked it. So that's it for today's show. Thank you so much for listening. I've also made a little cheat sheet about what we talk about on the show today for you to download at the end of the show notes. You can just go to sagemore.com/podcast, click on the episode archive to access the show. So it's just a little something for you to print out and be a mindful reminder for you. Lastly, one of the things I'm trying this year is to ask you guys if you have any questions that you would like me to ask on the show. Since we're recording a lot of episodes in advance nowadays. Not a lot, but a few episodes in advance. I try to book as many as I can before I leave for my big trip. So if you do get in our Facebook group, because I will be posting in there to ask for questions. I'm also currently looking for more guests to be on the show for Season 3 and Season 4. If you know anyone or wants to suggest someone, please definitely let me know. If you enjoyed this show, please leave us a review and rating on iTunes, SoundCloud, or Stitcher. Please, please, please. I would really, really appreciate it because it really helps us to book more guests on the show, to show that we're a legitimate show. Anyway, as usual, feel free to ask any questions on the show notes or in our private Facebook group. You can find the show notes by going to www.sagemore.com/podcast. That's it. Thank you so much again. Have a fantastic week and happy staging.